Easily find, book, and manage your travel nursing assignments with the AMN Passport app. Download today. It can be hard for nurses because we only have a finite amount of time to
Yeah.
eat. And like there might be a candy
Right.
drawer or like a snack drawer or, something, and you just feel like you need to keep your energy up in order to keep going. So what things do you think have worked, or what strategies can we implement on our
Yeah,
days?
and mindful eating, I've shared that, eating is my, it's my biggest struggle, even though I've done an immense amount of healing and I have a lot of coping mechanisms to deal with stress. I still, the way I choose to cope is by gorging myself on food and sometimes sweets, the more sweets the better.
Yeah.
And one thing that has been really helpful to me in my lifelong battle with my weight is mindful eating. And there are many ways
Mm.
to practice mindful eating, and it can come in the form of just actually being purposeful about what you put into your body, and
Mm-hmm.
deciding like what what make commitments to yourself about what you are, what you want to put into your body, and are there things that you don't want to put into your body. And I personally
Mm-hmm.
struggle working at organizations that have candy everywhere. It's a really difficult thing for
Yeah,
me,
me
really
too.
challenging. And so for those kinds of situations, I have to really, before I even go into work where I know that I'm going to be bombarded with candy, dishes everywhere, I have to like make a commitment that I am not going to, eat any of that today. And but also
Yeah.
have a plan. So that's where you're being mindful of saying, okay, I am going to be mindful of what I ingest into my body. And,
Yeah.
but I know that I'm going to face these obstacles along the way of reaching this goal. And
Mm-hmm.
one is, well, that candy jar I'm going to walk by 10 times today. And so having a plan for
Mm-hmm.
how can you meet that goal. And for myself, like I know like if I'm like there's certain parts of the day I'm more vulnerable, and in certain situations. So I have a
Mm-hmm.
commitment where I will, before I will do other things before. So I will take a big swig of tea. So I always typically have tea with me, and it doesn't have to be caffeinated. It can be decaffeinated, but I
Mm-hmm.
fast for 18 hours a day. So that's a whole other thing we don't have to talk about,
Okay.
but I always have tea because it helps control any desire for hunger and with long
Mm.
fast. And so, and it helps me when I am feeling hungry, or not really hungry, but I have a desire to eat. That's a whole other thing. Like,
Yeah.
um, knowing the difference between hunger and appetite. And that's part of mindful eating. And a lot
Mm.
of people don't realize there is a difference between feeling hungry and just having an appetite. Hunger is an actual physiological reaction where your body is like sending out signals saying it wants to eat. So your stomach
Mm-hmm.
starts growling, and you're having increased saliva production in your mouth, these kinds of things. This is actual signs of hunger. Whereas an
Mm-hmm.
appetite is purely emotional. It is just a desire to eat.
Mm.
And what I have found as a personal trick of mine is I have found tea works very well actually for both for me.
Okay.
And so that is something I have done to help with that, to help with me stay committed to my goals, is when I know I'm likely to be vulnerable, I take a big swig of my tea. And just as a side note, I always follow up with a swig of water because the tea stains our teeth. Okay. And so I
Yeah.
always, so, but between the two, like starting with a tea and some water, you're filling your stomach. And so you're,
Yeah.
you're giving your body whatever it's the sensations it needs to say, okay, you don't need to fill your stomach with something else. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing of being mindful of what you want to consume. And part
Mm-hmm.
of that may include planning ahead about what you're going to eat.
Yeah.
And this is really, really challenging for people who work a lot, is because if they're working like 10, 12-hour shifts, the last thing they want to think about when they get home is what are they going to bring to eat, for their next shift. And so I really encourage you to
Mm-hmm.
think ahead of time, is the meal
Yeah.
prep of what am I going to eat while I'm on shift on this day, so that you're planning in
Mm-hmm.
advance. And this goes both for people who are prone to
Yeah.
eating too much and people who are eating not enough, because I see the both. I see both people who get too
Mm-hmm.
small because they're not eating when they're working. And then the other side where
Yeah.
people are putting on a lot of weight because they didn't think through it and they're just gorging on whatever they can during the brief
Right.
moments that they have a
Yeah.
break. And so if you are
Yeah.
being purposeful about what you're going to eat, you can plan in advance and bring that
Right.
food with you, or know, like, okay, for this meal, I'm going to order from the cafeteria. On this day of the week, it's going to be too much for me to do meal prep. I will get something at the restaurant next door, whatever it may be, but
Yeah.
really thinking
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. We have, wonderful people that will pay for,
Yeah.
food for the unit, and they'll bring in like pizza or
Oh
donuts or
my.
something. And like, if I'm running around in a shift and my like adrenaline is
Yeah.
up or whatever, I just like quick, I will run in and just like
Yes.
hound a whole
Yes.
slice of pizza. And then, I won't even think
Yeah.
about it. But like if I take a
Yeah.
second and, like don't like lean into
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
desire, then sometimes I won't end up eating that
Yeah.
pizza.
Yeah.
It's just taking
Yes.
a second to like think about that
Hmm.
decision instead of just impulsively going for it.
Yeah, and that's really, it's just being purposeful. And I'm going to tell you, there's
Yeah.
going to be days that and I do it myself, where I made a commitment that I'm only eat a certain amount, and I go in, it may be at a workplace and they have the pizza and the donuts and the bagels and the muffins, and I may give in. And that's okay. It's not about beating yourself up,
Yeah.
but it's also
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
stopping for that moment and saying, is this part of the commitment I've made to myself for the day?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. Like, do I
do I
need it?
need it? But then mindful eating is also about being present when you are eating. And this can be
Mm-hmm.
very difficult when a person's on their shift and they're gorging the food quickly because they only have a few minutes to eat. But sometimes and I'm prone to this, I eat so quickly that I don't even give time for my body to send the signals saying it's full. And so I will
Yeah.
take in
Yeah.
too much. And then a few minutes later, my stomach feels like it's going to burst because I didn't slow down enough. And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe it's about saying, like, if you are prone to overindulging, particularly on shifts where you don't have a lot of time, what can you do
Mm-hmm.
to slow yourself down? And you may not have time to like sit down and really think about every bite you take and really thinking about all the
Mm-hmm.
sensations, because that's about mindful eating, is also about just being mindful of everything when you're eating, to slow yourself down. But can you
Yeah.
slow yourself down by, instead of having, a piece of pizza and a donut, can you just have the piece of pizza and then see how your stomach
Yeah.
feels? Like, is that okay? You know,
Yeah.
is there, and just slowing yourself down and saying, okay, before I take a
Mm-hmm.
second piece of pizza, or I do that, what can I do to, again, slow
Yeah.
myself down?
Let me get some water and
Yes.
like then see if
Yes.
that,
Yes.
just separate, give
Yes.
yourself a little bit of time in
Yes.
between that
Yeah.
decision, and then, see how you feel. Yeah. That is
Yeah.
definitely helped
Yeah,
me.
and for people, and again, because it is the flip side, is that some people don't eat enough. And it's also
Mm-hmm.
stopping, if you're on that side of the spectrum where you're not eating, it's also, mindful eating is about stopping long enough to listen to your body's cues. Like, are you feeling shaky? Are you feeling lightheaded? Is your body actually
Mm-hmm.
sending signs of true hunger, and you're just trying to
Yeah.
muscle through to get through the shift? And if you're in that side of the spectrum, what can you do to always have something with you? So if you're barreling through the day, like, can you carry a bar in your pocket, and you don't even, like, what is
Mm-hmm.
it, it can be half a
Yeah.
bar. Maybe your pockets aren't big enough, you can't fit a full bar, but can you fit half a bar, so that, in between patients or whatever, that you can eat something. And so mindful eating is like also paying
Yeah.
attention to your signals. So not just, are you too full, but are you super hungry and you need to eat?